Alrighty, a good Monday morning to all of you. Welcome in the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. As we, wow, what a start to the week! What an end to the weekend! What a weekend it was! Get into all of that coming up over the next couple of hours. We do the show 11 to 1 Monday through Friday. We stream it live on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. You can also find us on YouTube. The Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and if you are not already, and you'll be set to go. We appreciate that. Telephone line to get involved if you would like to, 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. I'm Mike Chico Bormann. We've got Mr. Bombastic in here as well, coming up in about an hour. What a weekend it was at Progressive Field. Any other time you're like, they lost 2 out of 3, and the Twins now have won 4 in a row, and now they're 4.5 games back. But right now, like, Hosey saves us again, but this time, nothing to do with the bat. Nothing to do with a great play. It was nighty-night, Tim Anderson. But we'll talk to Mandy Bell, covers the Guardians for MLB.com. She'll join us in about an hour. We've got plenty of Brown stuff to get to as well. They are back on the practice field this afternoon, 2:00, I believe. I don't know if they're, and I think this one is open. Yeah, I think this one is open to the public now. Weather permitting, I don't know what the status is. If we get word on that, we'll certainly pass it along. But it is open to the fans, beginning at 2. Tomorrow is not, and then I think Wednesday is, of course, getting ready for the preseason game number 2, or really number 1. I mean, I think now is when, I know training camp's been going on for a little while. I know they already played a preseason game, the Hall of Fame game, which obviously, was great last week, and Joe Thomas and his great induction speech. We'll talk about that. But I feel like now, Bohm, tonight, today, and yesterday, for that matter. Yesterday, today, and Washington Friday at home is kind of like preseason game 1 in terms of like their routine. Like, my understanding is yesterday's practice was pretty up-tempo. Today's practice, I think, is supposed to be pretty up-tempo. And now they kind of go from the more of the installation phase, which is a lot of what they've been doing in lead up to the Hall of Fame game. And now it's, okay, we're actually going to, put this in motion, and you're going to see how this thing all works. And it's more than just, we're installing, we want to put it in action. So it feels like this Washington game, because remember, they have Washington Friday, then the joint practices with Philadelphia. Those will be highly competitive. You have the game against Philadelphia, and then you have the game against Kansas City prior to week 1, September 10th, at home against Cincinnati. So I feel like this, Bohm, is preseason game number 1 coming up this Friday. You agree?
Yeah, Chico, I am inclined to agree.
Now, good to have that inclination. Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, there was a lot to look for in that first matchup that we saw against the Jets. I'm a little upset that I didn't get to hear any New York fans calling Rodgers a bum. But other than that, I think there were a lot of positive takeaways, especially for me, guys like Cedric Tillman and whatnot. But I think just the fact that you get to see a lot of the number 1s here on Friday, that it does feel more like the real deal.
Yeah, including Deshaun Watson. It's being rumored. I mean, Kevin Stefanski obviously has final say, and we'll see what happens. But there are we're hearing whispers, just a whisper, that Deshaun Watson may play a couple of series, 2, maybe 3, at the start of the game. My guess is, and I'm just going on, boots on the ground guys and gals who are covering it day in and day out. I do read. I would think Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, probably Amari Cooper, although if you could get a series or two with Amari Cooper, but again, they're not going to rush him back. But Amari Cooper and probably Joe Bitonio, I would say guys like that are not going to play. Could be wrong. But I think Deshaun Watson, one thing I did read, I think it was Zach Jackson had it, and he said, this is just my opinion. He said, but the last couple of days from Greenbrier and then the practice or two right before the Hall of Fame game, he said it wasn't as crisp, it wasn't as clean. He didn't say Deshaun played poorly in practice. He just said it wasn't as crisp and as functional as it was in the beginning of camp. So, and again, this is all normal. We are forgetting, or we need reminding of, that this is all, a new ball game for Deshaun Watson again. I mean, yeah, he's certainly getting used to the speed of the game, but until, and yeah, he played games last year, but this, I think with this unit and with the season, beginning and this team being his, he's got to really acclimate himself still to that. I don't think it'll take that long, but I think this is good that you're able to get, a few series with him on Friday. Again, you've got to be very careful with it. It's not an easy decision because, it's kind of like what I said with Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. And now, Jamar Chase is even saying, he said, oh, look, hey, if it's going to risk him being out for the remainder of the year or a huge chunk of the year, I don't want him to play against Cleveland. Now, Joe Burrow is going to be chomping at the bit to play in that first game on September 10th. Again, it's too far out right now to say yay or nay. I did say I don't think he will. I still stand by that. And I think it's because, again, this is what the balancing act is for these coaches. And this is when guys are healthy, that we want them to get some reps. Obviously, the bullets are going to be flying for real in about a month, but that balance is and that dance is we got to have these guys healthy. We got to have them upright. We got to have them on the field and ready for week one and as ready as they can be for week one and throughout the entire season. So, all of that plays into it. But Washington on Friday, I think we will see Deshaun Watson. We'll see what happens with the defensive line. Couple of things which we'll get into a little bit later. Defensive line, you've had some injury. Alex Wright, I heard, didn't practice yesterday. Isaiah Thomas didn't practice yesterday. And, Jordan Elliott, we didn't really talk about this on Friday. Jordan Elliott played well into the second quarter. You thought he was going to be a starter, and if he was going to be a starter, why would he play that long? Now you start to wonder, could he be on the chopping block? I guess I say all of that to say this. The sooner the Browns can land Shelby Harris, the better. I feel like, that's the guy that you want to, we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was more imminent than it was. Hopefully they're going to be able to get that done. I mean, first of all, you need bodies. I mean, you got to have bodies on that practice field and guys to take the reps. But certainly now you're starting to see injuries take place. And maybe Jordan Elliott, man, that's one guy. I mean, boom, I feel like I've been talking about Jordan Elliott because I have 3 years. Like, at first he struggled I remember loving the pick out of Missouri. And I think they got him like in the 5th round. And a lot of experts were saying, oh, yeah, he's going to be good. This could be a great steal. And then, okay, nothing really happened, but he's a rookie, right? And then it was, he's real. Oh, look out. Jordan Elliott camp, he's looking good. Look at he shed weight. Oh, boy. Who's got the camp? By Jordan Elliott's looking good. And then nothing. And it seems like here we go again, but, oh, no, he's going to be better. Like everybody, he's going to benefit from Jim Schwartz and that system. But now all of a sudden Thursday, you don't want to read too much into anything. And that is, and I mean that, it's very dangerous to go down that path in preseason. You don't know exactly what Stefanski and Schwartz and all these guys are thinking, but you can kind of connect a few dots. Why was Jordan Elliott, A, starting, and B, playing well into the second quarter? Just because he felt like I think that's them really trying to get a look at him. Is this a guy that we're going to be able to? And he got pushed around. He got pushed around a little bit in that game. So I don't know. I feel like there's going to be some additions. They signed Charles Wiley, I think is his name. I've never heard of him. I'm not going to lie. To the squad today. And again, you're going to need camp bodies because you've got guys that are just injured. But we'll see. I don't know if Jordan Elliott. It's weird, but I don't know if we're going to even see Jordan Elliott in a Browns uniform this year, Boom.
And I think you saw guys behind him step up a little bit too, right? Like I specifically remember Siaki Ika stepping up a couple times. So he's got to be feeling the pressure at this point, Chico, because those younger guys are coming in and they're showing a lot more promise than he has now. Elliott has had some moments in regular season games, but I think he's done just enough to keep the organization hanging on. And I think that he really needs to prove it this year. And I agree with you in the fact that he has been playing a lot. And by that same logic, you saw DeJuan Jones playing a lot of time, like more than anyone else on the Browns. I think it's a little bit different in his case because they just they don't expect him to get a lot of regular season reps this year unless there are injuries.
Yeah. Yeah, Jordan, I think that was one that was very telling. I mean, we'll see what happens, but here's a guy that has been a disappointment. And, the fact that he started, I don't think is that big of a deal. Again, you've had some injuries but the fact that he played into the second quarter in the Hall of Fame game, not even really preseason game number 1, which I'm going to call preseason game number 1 this Friday. I mean, the Hall of Fame game was good, but, I mean, the Browns really didn't mince any words. They didn't they weren't shy about saying that it was kind of like another tune-up, another practice type thing. The significance, obviously, being in Canton and celebrating Joe Thomas and all that. All right, we'll get back into all of that coming up a little bit later in the show. Obviously, Joe Thomas had his speech on Saturday. Clearly did not disappoint, about 20 minutes long. We'll talk about that. But, I mean, Bohm, normally I wouldn't, you look at the Guardians over the weekend, and if you just say, they lost 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. Yesterday was very disappointing, and it wasn't Emmanuel Clase's fault. So now, because the Twins have won 4 in a row, they're 4.5 games back. They've got Toronto, their Air Canada jet. Did you see it, Bohm, when you walked in? The Air Canada jet is right there in front of us, in front of our palatial studios here at Big Play at Burke Lakefront Airport.
I was in way too much of a hurry to take a peek.
That's okay.
Now I'm perplexed, and I
well, don't be
check in the nearest break.
Don't be perplexed. Curious would be. You can be curious. I don't want you to be perplexed.
Air Canada on the premises.
Air Canada. Oh, Canada. Why did I do that? It's like
why not?
Yeah, that's true. Air Canada is parked out there. The Toronto Blue Jays, pretty good. They're in town for 4. Then you've got 3 at Tampa Bay. Later this month, you've got a homestand against the Dodgers. You go then on the road to Toronto. Like, what I'm telling you is this team right now, 4.5 games out. Josh Naylor's going to be out for a while. Jose Ramirez, more on him in just a second. Will probably miss a few games because of discipline, but that's okay. Boom. It is getting on news shows. Jose Ramirez knocking out Tim Anderson. And by the way, the soundtrack now, hats off to Tom Hamilton, the longtime legendary radio play-by-play voice for your Cleveland Indians.
I'm so happy for Hammy. That was an iconic call. I'm so glad it's getting the attention it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, not that he needs. I mean, everybody knows that he's very much revered and one of the best in the game.
But now non-sports fans who have probably never heard of him are hearing his voice.
Yeah, the only thing that's true. The only thing that I want to be, because I was telling you off the air, a buddy of mine, his son, who is I don't know, 16, 17 years old. I think he's got another year of high school left. I should probably know that. Sorry. But yeah, I think he's going into his senior year. So everybody's been talking about Jose knocking out, Tim Anderson. This was Saturday, and we'll get to all the details, including with Mandy Bell at noon. But he basically was like, why was it like his call was really good, but I don't understand. And I'm like, there might be some people, because it was 50 years ago when George Foreman knocked out Joe Frazier, but that iconic, that legendary clip was Howard Cosell. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. I'm not going to try to do a Cosell imitation because I don't have one. But, I mean, and it's still today, right? You'll hear it even if you're in the backyard wrestling, if you're watching another sport, you'll still hear people say it. But some of you, including those of a certain age, might be like, wait a minute. Well, Hamilton, I don't know if we can. I don't want to. Yeah, that's a rights thing. So I gotta double check on that one. But the call itself is, Hosey sliding into second. He hits a double. They hadn't really done anything in that game. There was a single, and then he follows with a double, and he slides in, and Tim Anderson. And I got to be honest, I didn't realize this. From afar, I've always respected Tim Anderson's game, not knowing, any of the other crap that that they've said about him. But I've always thought, he's kind of one of those underrated guys. That said, he has been terrible, and I mean terrible, this season, as have the White Sox. So Hosey goes into second head first, and Anderson kind of tagged him a little hard, and then he didn't really move, he kind of stood over, just kind of being Bush League. I mean, is the best way I can say it. Bush League. And so Hosey kind of said something, and he did kind of point at him. Well, then Anderson, because this is what Anderson does, then they start, having a few words, and this is where Hamilton's like, all right, he gets up. Wait a minute. Now they're going to square. No, they're throwing. And it turned into a boxing match. This was not a pushing and shoving.
The way the ump reacted to, how he backed up, that was so reminiscent of an actual boxing match. It was perfect.
Well, yeah, and that umpire, gosh, I can't, Malachi something. If you noticed, at first he started to break it up, right? Because most fights in baseball, not all of them, Nolan Ryan and Robin Ventura, and, Rougned Odor and Jose Bautista. I love that one. Rougned Odor, right now that's probably what he's most known for, and his name. But most of the time, those baseball fights are just pushing and shoving and, a little pointing. And maybe you swing and you miss. And if you swing and miss, you're still in big trouble. But it kind of de-escalates. Okay, we're good. Now, that umpire at first stepped in. And then as soon as Tim Anderson goes like this, he backs away. He's like, I don't want any part of this. No, you guys want to fight it out. You guys want to put up your dukes. You go ahead and do that. I'll just watch back here. And that's when it got, and Jose Ramirez basically is like, okay, he invited me through the translator. By the way, thank you to Rafa, who was on with Booby and, of course, longtime Spanish broadcaster and now with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's not only is he extremely good at what he does, he's funny as hell, which I didn't know until I met him recently. But he was describing the translator and how the translator actually put out exactly what was said between Anderson and Jose. And Jose was basically like, and I'm paraphrasing, Tim invited me to a fight, so I said, okay, let's fight. But that's when it just went off the rails because Anderson's swinging and then Hosey it's not textbook. It's not something that you're going to, it was a survival type thing, but you could tell that Hosey may or may not have, like, okay, Hosey's the type of guy, and we'll ask Mandy about it. She's been around. I'm not going to pretend like I know him, but we've all, come to, he's laid back. He's fun. Remember Shohei Ohtani at the All-Star game? When they asked him the question, of course, this got all the speculation. Oh, my gosh, Shohei Ohtani's coming to Cleveland. No. But he was asked, good question, hey, you know what? Now that it's the All-Star game, who are you looking most forward to, playing with or against? And he said, you know what? I like the idea that, I'm going to be able to be on the same team as Jose Ramirez. In addition to being a good player, we have a good time, like, on the bases and stuff. We'll be chattering. Like, Jose is one of the friendliest dudes out there. Jose's all about having fun. But like anybody, and especially, a professional athlete, you've got a competitive streak, but B, like anybody, everybody has that button. I mean, damn it, I've been trying to push that button on Bohm for the longest time, and when I finally do, I'll probably be dead. No, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like Bohm, you're very laid back. You like to have a good time, and I'll razz you, you'll razz me. But like with Hosey, that was one, and this is where it's very important. It wasn't just, hey, I didn't appreciate, that tag. I didn't appreciate, let's go back to Friday, the Rocchio Bush League move where he pushes his hand off the bag. And Hosey's saying it wasn't even Friday and it wasn't Saturday. This has been going back a long time where Tim Anderson just disrespects the game. Those are big words from Jose Ramirez. And it's not something that should be taken lightly, in my opinion. His reaction and the fact that he said disrespects the game. Because, again, who's a guy that does play the game the right way? And I know we're all homers and biased, but damn it, he does. Not only is he an incredible talent, but nobody has to tell Jose, run through the bag at first base. Hey, turn that. That's actually what he was doing. Could have been a single. He turns it into a double, head first slide into second. He plays the game, Jose Ramirez does, the right way. Tim Anderson, according to Jose Ramirez and many others who have piled on since Saturday, he does not. I don't know if you saw this, Bohm. Keenan Middleton shouldn't mean a whole lot. He was traded at the deadline from the White Sox to the Yankees. They needed some bullpen help. Apparently Middleton just absolutely, went nuts. Said the White Sox and the Yankees now are in Chicago against the White Sox for a series beginning tonight. This is just breaking like over the Let me read this. Because I don't want to get these quotes wrong. This is Keenan Middleton, reliever for the White Sox, formerly with the White Sox, now with the Yankees. He said they were plagued by a horrible culture that, quote, had no rules. He cited rookies regularly falling asleep in the bullpen. What? He says, quote, we came in with no rules. I don't know how you police the culture if there are no rules or guidelines to follow because everyone is doing their own thing. Like, how do you say anything about it because, well, there are no rules? He wasn't done. He was just getting started. Keenan Middleton, reliever that was shipped to the Yankees at the trade deadline. Quote, you have rookies sleeping in the bullpen during the game. You have guys missing meetings. You have guys missing PFPs. I didn't know what that, pitcher fielding practices. And there are no consequences, he says, for any of this stuff. Multiple sources who corroborated Middleton's account to ESPN said a pitcher was seen napping during games as well as skipping fielding practice. But see, last year, La Russa took a nap on him. But this was supposed to have changed with Pedro Grifol, and they're 20 games below 500, but they shipped off guys, they're sellers. It is an absolute mess there.
Chico, you talk all the time about the importance of the culture when you talk about the Browns, and that's how you bring it all together. And you look at that White Sox team, and they do have a lot of talent up and down that roster, but clearly they are struggling with the same issue that the Browns have struggled with since at least 1999.
I don't know if I've ever been more proud of you than I am right now.
Maybe I'll clip it then.
And I almost feel like, I should apologize because I don't want you don't want to become me, which to a lot of people is old man screaming at the clouds. But what you just said, Boom, and so articulate, so eloquent, as only you can, is dead on correct. Now, okay, there are other things too. They've had injuries, but I'll be honest with you, when I was reading this, I was thinking of not necessarily, I don't want to say, last year, but the Browns since 99 in general. Like just, it's just anybody does whatever they want. There's not, there are rules, but then they're bent, which, look, every superstar gets leniency to some degree, but I don't need to tell you that for years and years, there really were no superstars for the Browns. It was just chaos. But your point, that's exactly what this is. Like, guys have no rules. So, the Yankees have that rule. This is still back to George Steinbrenner days, that no facial hair. So, Middleton...
Except for mustaches, right? You can have mustaches and that's it.
Can you have mustaches?
Doesn't Rodon or whatever, doesn't he have?
Carlos Rodon?
Doesn't he have a stash?
You might be right. Maybe mustache.
Like of all the facial hairs to discriminate against and only allow mustaches. I find that so interesting.
You notice how mustaches have come back in now? Why?
Kinda, yeah.
Why? Is like porn all of a sudden on the rise? Like what? Sorry, that was choice of words.
It's a very hipster, trendy thing.
Yeah, like, I don't like it, but, and I can't, full disclosure, I can't grow a good mustache, but like it's become a thing. But
I went to a wedding a couple of months ago with a guy getting married. He had a mustache. It's like the first time I've ever seen him with a mustache. Whoa.
Don't you think his wife's kind of like, dude?
She must approve. I mean, if you're going to rock that for a wedding, get that memorialized with pictures and everything.
That's usually the day. That's usually the one occasion where the guys that are adamant as hell about having facial hair, that even they say, all right, sweetheart, you're right. I'll shave it. We'll go clean shaven. We got a photographer. This is the wedding. So I like that. Your buddy's like, no. Doesn't matter. So Middleton says, the second I found out I was traded, I shaved my face. I was ready to play by their rules because all I want to do is win games. He's speaking of the Yankees now after being traded from Chicago. You know how to act here, meaning New York. You know not to be late, and you know there are consequences if you are late. I mean, this now, and again, we're talking about this in the context of what happened on Saturday night. The story with the White Sox has been a disaster all season and last year. And for the most part, yeah, you could chalk it up to some injuries and whatnot, but Middleton just shines a whole new light. And again, this doesn't sound like somebody who's, he's really upset that he got traded. If anything, he was happy he got traded. He was happy to get the hell out of there. He grabbed his razor as fast as he could, shaved his face. Maybe it was electric. I don't know. And he was out the door, and my God, get me the hell out of here. But you're right. Like, this is one of those things right now where now everybody, remember we had a beat writer from the White Sox on earlier in the years, I don't know, month and a half ago, one of Meisel's buddies, and we were asking him about it, and he's like, yeah, the front office, you got Hahn and there's Reinsdorf and there, it is what it is, right? Well, this just, he goes scorched earth on everybody. He calls out Lance Lynn, since traded, and other guys, not necessarily calling him out, but saying, he, along with some other guys, weren't here for the beginning of spring training because of the WBC, the World Baseball Classic. And he's like, it really had a lot to do with, he goes, and Lance Lynn, for anybody that knows baseball, Lance Lynn's a hard ass. Lance Lynn is he hard on himself. And Middleton's point was, I think if Lance Lynn was there and he saw pitchers sleeping in the bullpen, or if he saw guys missing meetings or, missing pitchers fielding practice, he would have piped up and let somebody know, but he wasn't there. He's like, so really from day one with the White Sox, it was just anything goes, according to Middleton. Asked where the void exists with the White Sox. This is what I'm saying. Quote, leadership in general. They say shit rolls downhill. In this article, they went S dash dash dash. They say bleep rolls downhill. I feel like some guys don't want to speak up when they should have. It's hard to police people when there are no rules. Wow.
And Chico, I really commend this guy Middleton for speaking up. I think that's, I mean, calling them out, it's probably going to have some blowback for him, but I'm really glad that he was open about this. And I think it, like, that in itself, to me, strikes me as leadership. Being able to speak up about this sort of culture problem.
Here's my question. Does he get booed or cheered in Chicago? Because some might look at this and go, you know what? Our team stinks, and we need changes. And if this guy like normally that would be somebody like, oh man, he's going to hear it from the crowd. But it might be just I might have to tune into the Yankees White Sox tonight just to see what the response is from the crowd.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chico, and I hope he plays. I am curious to see what happens as well, because I think that this sort of like putting them on blast could be the slap in the face wake up call that just makes them forces them into making some changes with these problems.
Yeah, and I think if you believe Keenan Middleton, and I agree with him, I mean, I think a lot of people have hinted at it. We're not just talking about, oh, you need to, move on from Tim Anderson, or you need to do. We're talking like general manager. We're talking the owner's the owner. But yeah, this is big. This is big. So, but again, just when Jose cannot become any more legendary, he becomes more legendary. And again, it was not a good weekend. They dropped 2 out of 3. Their schedule gets much tougher. Jose's going to be missing some games. Hopefully not as many. Shouldn't be as many as Tim Anderson. But, you throw a punch, you land a punch. But there's nobody out there, I think, that would say, including baseball players, that would say, oh, well, come on, Jose, you're hurt. No. I mean, you do that and you square up, and then you start swinging wildly like Anderson did, all bets are off. Sorry, all bets are off. And Jose just happened to land it. I gotta give a shout out, Cody Dauk, who is our graphic artist. Everybody's coming out with T-shirts. I honestly believe, I'm not just saying this because I'm with Big Play. I think Cody was like the first to get a couple made up. Big Play Store, at Big Play Store on Twitter. He's got a couple different versions, but he's got one. It's like light blue, and it's Jose, just like like Muhammad Ali. There's that iconic photo where he's standing over his opponent after he knocks him down. It's Jose standing over Tim Anderson, and nothing else. And then there's another one with I think Hammy's call maybe on it or something like that. But at Big Play Store, or go to bigplay.com and check it out. Like, I'm getting mine. Like there is no doubt that I will have those T-shirts hopefully by the end of the week. Phenomenal job by Cody Dauk.
Yeah, Chico. I mean, that was the first time I've ever seen someone on a baseball diamond just get clocked and knocked the F out. And Jose, he did it, Chico. It was a no-look fit headshot, right? And he's being pulled away as it happens. Like, he's just, as you said, he's like fending for his life, right? And he just lays a haymaker. It was, man. And the shout out to Hammy and also to Chubba Wubba Hub 24.
Chubba Wubba.
Down goes Anderson. That was the worst Hammy impression of all time. I
thought it sounded exactly like him, Boom. Like, honest to God, I closed my eyes and it's like, is Hammy producing the show today?
I didn't have it planned out, and I would have said it twice if it was like on a better track. But
see, he's a guy that I don't think you, other than the words itself, you don't imitate him, because you can't. Like, and that's what's awesome about him, is that he's very down to earth. From all you can, like, Meisel did an article on him, because he's like, I don't know what everybody's all, all I did was try to make it entertaining and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's all he's done for however many years. But it's just the idea, like I said, if it's anybody else, this is still a big talking point. But it's Hosey. And just when you think like Hosey can't become any more popular, Q rating any higher, he just got it. And again, it's not something that you're, oh yeah, cool. I mean, they lost 2 out of 3, but you know what? Damn it. There comes a time when you got to be a man. Man, I'm 40. Remember Mike Gundy, the mullet? I'm a man. I'm 40. Come at me. Well, Tim Anderson tried to come at him, and then we didn't even get to. We will here in a second. We'll save fair or foul for later in the second hour. We didn't even get to Tim Anderson because if he lands the punch, okay. Tim Anderson, I felt like I like to quote the movie Friday, and I won't do it verbatim here. But remember when Debo knocks out, is it Red? Or it's with the bike. Remember that?
Yeah, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah, Debo. I can't remember the character's name now. Debo, I mean, he just lays him out, and then Smokey comes running down, stands over, and he's like, "You got knocked the bleep out, man!" Like that's all you can. Like Tim Anderson, he didn't even take a step back. He just fell back. He was out cold. Like, in a way, don't you feel sorry a little bit for Tim Anderson? I mean, really, I don't. But, like, think about it. You're having a terrible year. And I don't just mean your team, him personally. After the All-Star break, he was better. But he was atrocious. And he's a very, I thought, underrated player. And I've said that in different seasons, and I think that holds true. But he's been having a horrible year. So on top of you having a horrible year, on top of people wanting you traded, and he wasn't, on top of you, like, kind of being a Bush League player, then you just get knocked out. You didn't just get hit. Like, Jose Bautista got punched, he got hit, right? Robin Ventura, and I'm going back a ways. Robin Ventura, I mean, now Nolan Ryan's just pummeling him, right? I mean, it's one of those, don't mess
He got put in a headlock.
Yes, boom, he got put in the headlock, and he's just getting pummeled, right? So, but he never, like, I don't think he lost consciousness. Tim Anderson was out. He was out. He was like, and then he came to. And the best part about guys that get knocked out, and we've seen this in everyday life, that are embarrassed, what you always do, remember this, kids, what you always do is while you're being escorted away after getting the shit knocked out of you and seeing stars, is to then hold me back. I'm going to go get him. Sorry, it's too late for that, bro. You just got your ass knocked out. It's too late. You're done. Jose won. Jose will always win. But you didn't just take the punch and you didn't just lose a fight. You got knocked out. You got knocked the bleep out, man.
Yeah, Chico. And then how about afterwards? The fans chanting, Jose, 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 Jose. It was just a legendary moment. And I can't help but give the umpire, you out gesture.
You know what else, too? When you play that clip, it was good. When you play the clip, you can hear the crowd. Like, the combination of Hosey throwing the haymaker that knocks Anderson out, the combo of that with Hammy's call, but then you can also hear that crowd. You're right. Jose, 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 like in the background. It's just one of those, and I hate to say it's an iconic moment because I know I'm going to get somebody that's like, oh, yeah, way to, here's your team struggling. That's good for, well, then don't tell the kids not to, listen to it or whatever, or don't pay attention to the fight. But would anybody have done anything differently? Jose did nothing wrong. I don't care. Now, baseball has to punish him. I get that. And here's what we can take comfort in. The Guardians aren't going anywhere. And not that, it was Naylor's out, as I said. Now Ramirez is going to be out. Savali was dealt to Tampa Bay. Like, they were already gunning for 2024. If they happen to catch Minnesota, great. Minnesota now has a 4.5 game lead. I mentioned Toronto's in town for 4 games. You've got, and we'll talk with Mandy Bell from MLB.com coming up top of the hour. You've got, 3 rookies in your rotation along with Noah Syndergaard and a bullpen. I mean, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So they're not, you're gonna miss him. Can you imagine if they were it came down to, a game? Maybe it still does, but I don't think it will. And you're without Naylor and Ramirez because, without that heart of the lineup, and Naylor's going to be out, I don't know, probably a few more weeks with that ab strain. But we don't have to worry about that. See, this is when I can make you feel good about being 4.5 games out of first place, below 500. You don't have to worry about it.
And Chico, not to get too far ahead of myself, I'm obviously one show at a time. But Booney on Wednesday, that's going to be a lot of fun conversations to be had there. And I want to pick his brain about this fight. He saw it. And so that's going to be fun. And then obviously all the trade deadline stuff. So I'm looking forward to Wednesday's show. I don't want to overlook Tuesday or the rest of today, but
No, that's all right, Boom. I appreciate that. Let's just say that we did have a back and forth. It was something unrelated to Hosey and Tim Anderson, and then I, of course, brought it back to Tim Anderson. Let's just say he had a few comments about old Tim.
You're teasing me, Chico.
I didn't know this, and I don't even know if he'll say it on the air, but I didn't realize that. I just kind of oblivious to it. I always looked at Tim Anderson as, like I said, wow, underrated player. People don't realize, what he brings to the White Sox. I guess he's been Bush League for a while. Because Jose he just wouldn't do that. He wouldn't say that. He wouldn't do that if it wasn't. And then you're hearing a bunch of people kind of pile on. I didn't think anything could top, you had Joe Thomas going to the Hall of Fame. And he has his induction speech on Saturday. Does a great job. But after Hosey knocks out Tim Anderson, and it wasn't just here. I mean, that thing, right now, that's viral. You mentioned Joe Rogan was talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be on Good Morning America for all we know.
Should be.
Wouldn't that be awesome if they brought Hosey in for Good Morning America, him and his translator, and he's just describing exactly what happened?
Bro.
you know what it was, bro. He invited me to a fight, and who's going to turn down? He invited me to fight. I'm like, okay, let's fight. You got knocked the bleep out, man. Whew. That is,
Yeah, full disclosure, I had a show Saturday night. I got asked to play one last second, right?
Look at you.
It was really, so I set up and everything, and I thought there were 4 artists who were going to perform before I took the stage. So I went out to my car because it was really hot in the venue, so I'm just chilling out in the AC, and then I discovered this Jose thing happened. And I got so immersed in it, caught up in it, right? I walked back in 30 minutes later, and apparently the plans had all changed, and they were already in the middle of the set. I had no idea, so I just had to hop on stage and start going. But I was so caught up in the Hosey news that I missed some showtime.
And I didn't see it live. I admit I didn't see it live. But my goodness, and it's still going. Not only obviously Jose is trending, but Hammy's call, down goes Anderson, that's trending and was trending most of the day yesterday, probably still is. Now I can't wait. And the other thing is, I got to see now with the schedule. Do the White Sox, I thought that they were, by the way, did you like the White Sox? This was a planned day off yesterday. Now, I know you got to say that, but does anybody really believe that Tim Anderson had a planned day off? Sunday?
And Chico, now that you mentioned that, I was just thinking about the whole concussion aspect of it. Obviously, with what unfolded with Anthony Rizzo, I don't know if you saw the stuff about that, how he was concussed months ago and he kept playing, and his numbers just fell off a cliff.
He got off to a good start, Rizzo did, yeah.
Yeah, and so you did mention that you feel a little bad for Timmy Anderson, and I'm wondering like if this could be a legitimate health problem for him, like a concussion for him that he has to deal with.
I don't quite feel that bad for him. I don't think it's that.
Well,
I mean,
I hope that he makes a full recovery from whatever injury he's sustained.
I think because he got knocked out, I mean, if you got knocked out, then I guess that would be a concussion, I would think. I mean, or I'm not even going there. If I find out that, okay, oh, wow, it's it, then great. But no, I mean, he was an idiot for doing it.
He was definitely asking for it.
And his reaction too. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's, by the way, they don't play the White Sox again this year. I didn't think they did, but I figured I'd check. Man, that would be,
you think anyone would get beaned in that game?
Wait a minute. Oh, no. I was looking at something else. Okay, yeah, no White Sox the rest of the year.
Sadly, no chance in the postseason of facing him either.
Thank you, Bohm. Sure people appreciated that part of it. Yeah, that probably won't happen. Wow. We'll talk to Mandy Bell. I mean, believe it or not, we've got other things to talk about with the Guardians as well. They lose yesterday. See, here's the other thing, too. We talked about the young rotation. And with the moves they made, and we talked about this when Josh Bell did get moved, and people were like, they moved him for Gene Segura, the middle. No, they didn't. They did it to get out from that contract, and they got Khalil Watson, Bohm's boy, who, as we established on Friday, clearly has a man crush on this young man.
And is not to be confused with Khalil Herbert.
Yes, who you officially thought he was. Maybe you have a man crush on him, too, and you didn't want to admit that.
Unlikely.
But that's okay. But now, like Brian Rocchio, who has a bright future, kicked it around a little bit. This is what you're going to get. Like, we all want to see the young guys. The young guys are still going to show. It's the major leagues, and, you know, we've been lucky and fortunate. They've been lucky and fortunate with the rotation and the fact that these guys have been as great as they have been. I'm talking about Bybee. I'm talking about Allen. I'm talking about Gavin Williams to some degree. But they're going to be coming up on innings limits. It's just it's not going to happen. And if it does, then God bless them. But I can't imagine it's going to happen. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get Mandy Bell's version. And just, you know, being there, what was the reaction? Because she said the same thing. I think same thing that you said. And a lot of people said, you don't see that a whole lot in a baseball game. You'll see bench clearing brawls. You'll see some pushing and shoving, and maybe, you know, a swing and a miss. You don't see something quite like that, like we saw on Saturday. Mandy Bell, MLB.com is next. Chico Bormann Show with you until 1 o'clock right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Bormann Show, second hour on this Monday. Good to have you along. A little overcast, a little rainy, a little soggy, but that's okay. We'll be getting some more into some Brown stuff in the second hour of the show, including an addition on the defensive line. They need some bodies on the defensive line with some injuries. We'll get into all of that coming up later. But right now, let us head out to the guest line. By the way, Bohm, did you notice AI? Artificial intelligence. We have a basically what do you call it? Automated system. So AI normally when they translate who it is and where they and who they're with and what they want to talk about. I think this is the first time that it says Mandy Bell, Cleveland Guardian. It says Guardian, but the fact they got her name right, they got Cleveland Guard like. Hey, our automated system. Hats off. I don't know if
we're getting somewhere.
AI is the answer, Bohm. He is the answer. All right. With all of that, Mandy's rolling her eyes, which I don't blame her. Mandy Bell, MLB.com, covering your Guardians, who are back in action tonight at home against the Toronto Blue Jays, start of a 4-game series. Mandy joining us here on the Chico Bormann Show. Mandy, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing very well. We're all having a good time. I think everybody's having a good time. In the midst of what's been a very frustrating season, no getting around that. In the midst of, hey, you know what? When all the dust clears, they did lose 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. But you know what? Damn it, Jose Ramirez knocked out Tim Anderson. Not just like a push, or he knocked him out. I guess I'll start with this. You're there, you're watching, you've covered a lot of baseball, you're still very young, and not old farts like myself, but you've seen plenty of baseball games. Have you seen anything quite like that, what unfolded on Saturday?
No, definitely not in person, at least. I mean, that was next level. I was sitting there and was just sort of fixating on Andres Jimenez coming around third base to score as Jose's going in for the double. I figured Jose would be safe, whatever, don't worry about that. I was watching Jimenez because it seemed like he sort of changed speeds as he was going around third, and I was trying to figure out if it was just he realized he could just walk home and score, or if something sort of happened in his hamstring, something. It looked like he may have been hurt. I'm staring. I'm like, did he just get hurt rounding the bag? And I'm watching him get over to the dugout. I'm just overanalyzing. I'm like, okay, maybe he's all right. And so as I'm just about to go back down to my computer screen from watching him get to the dugout, I see the bench just completely empty. I'm thinking, what on earth? Where are they going? And I look up, and at that point, Anderson had already dropped his glove, and his fists were up in front of his face, ready to just square up against Jose Ramirez. And my jaw just hit the ground because you've seen brawls where guys get really heated. You've seen them sort of have maybe a little collision. Maybe there's something where there's someone's covering too much of the bag. They're blocking the bag. You're pushing them off. And as soon as you push them, you just start swinging, whatever it might be. I've never seen where you just drop the gloves and you square up against each other and you're just bouncing around like your boxer's ready to get the clear to just start going. It was the strangest thing. And not only was it just strange to have that start, but then it seemed like it lasted 3 different rounds. It died down, and then you had both managers going at it, and then that died down, and then third base coach Mike Sarbaugh, of all people, starts up round 3 just charging over at the whole team, it seemed like. That was just, all of it together was so strange. Definitely gave me something easier to write about than thinking about the fact that they had been no hit into the 6th, or that Noah Syndergaard had given up 4 home runs. So I was okay with writing about that instead, but it was just pure chaos, it seemed like.
Yeah, I think to kind of elaborate a little bit on what you were talking about and saying you've never seen anything quite like that. Like, I'm thinking of Rougned Odor against Jose Bautista. But, like, okay, you landed a punch. He didn't get knocked out. I mean, even Robin Ventura, who was taking punch after punch from old Nolan Ryan, he was still he was bloodied, but he was conscious. Like, it had so many elements of things that you're just like, wait, you're right. First of all, it looked like a hockey, like drop the gloves, okay, let's go. The one of the other funnier moments I thought was the umpire originally was like, okay, I'm going to wrap up. We're going to get in between here. We're going to do what we need to do to de-escalate. And then all of a sudden he sees Tim Anderson drop the glove, put up the dukes. He's like, I'm out of here. He steps back. He's like, you guys want to have it out? Go ahead.
It seems strange that that's what he did, but I honestly can't blame him because I don't think I want to be in the middle of those two right there either because, one, it just seemed like they were so heated, and it takes so much to get Jose Ramirez to be anything but even-keeled. So I really think it just is a testament to how much Anderson had been chirping at them, how intense it had gotten, maybe obnoxious at times. And so to get Jose rattled like that, it takes so much. So I'd be running out of there too.
Mandy Bell, MLB.com, joining us covering the Guardians. Of course, Guards back at it tonight. At home, beginning a 4-game series against the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah, you mentioned Jose, and I mean, I think, yeah, okay, we're all biased somewhat here, but even throughout baseball, Shohei Ohtani, I was just saying in the first hour that, when Ohtani was asked that question at the All-Star game about, hey, who are you looking forward to playing with or against? And he's like, I like Jose Ramirez. He's always joking around. Like, he's like that with everybody, whereas with Tim Anderson, and this is what I'd like you to comment on if you can, if you know, like Jose made it clear. I thought this was very telling. He made it clear that, okay, first and foremost, he basically said, let's fight. So if you're going to invite me to a fight, I'm going to go. But he said, it wasn't just then. It wasn't even the Bush play Friday with Rocchio and pushing. He's like, he's been doing this for a while. And, of course, when something like this happens, others will, chime in. It's sounding more and more like Tim Anderson, who I've always viewed as like an underrated good baseball player, but that he's been Bush League for a while in his career. You hearing that?
I'm starting to. I just don't know if it was something that was as widely known as maybe some other players had been in the past, where you just know that they've been able to get under most of the league's skin. But this definitely has surfaced a lot of that. You're starting to hear more and more comments from just people around the league that, yeah, I can agree with Jose's statement of this has been going on for a while now. Even it wasn't that like obvious that he had been bothering them outside of, okay, he pushed Rocchio's hand off the bag at second base on Friday night. And they were really annoyed with that, but you can't really tell from afar, unless you're in the action, that
True.
He was going crazy on Gabriel Arias at first base the whole game, which none of us noticed. Players don't bring that stuff up to media. Neither do managers. You just sort of let that type of stuff go. So it's hard for fans or media members to really pick up on that type of stuff because you can't hear it. You're not involved in it. But apparently it had gotten really bad to the point that the umpire even had to go over to him, as Tito told us, that he had to go over to Anderson and say, all right, knock it off. That's enough. And
Wow.
for it to be enough to get the umpires involved of just some heckling from the first baseline, it's a little bit more than just heckling from the dugout when Arias was playing first base. So I think it's just, he just nags and knows how to get under people's skin. And I think he may just go too far with that at times. And it seems like there is some frustration beyond just the Guardians. It seems like there's frustration that I've heard of from other players, other teams, whatever it might be. So it seems like this isn't just something that's special to Cleveland right now in one series that, he got really bad this series. And I think it was pretty telling how in that fight, it just seemed like maybe his teammates weren't the quickest to completely back him in those moments. And
Yep.
I think those small things like that can say so much about what he might mean to a team and how frustrated maybe his own even teammates get with him.
Did you see or hear about the comments from Keenan Middleton that came out today?
I did not yet, no.
Okay, so Middleton, just to give you a heads, because this is very, very interesting considering. So obviously he was dealt to the Yankees before the trade deadline, and he comes out and he blasts Chicago. He said, quote, "We came in with no rules. I don't know how you police the culture if there are no rules or guidelines to follow because everyone is doing their own thing. Like, how do you say anything about it because there are no rules?" Then he says, and this is... wow. You have rookies sleeping in the bullpen during the game. You have guys missing meetings. You have guys missing pitcher fielding practices, and there are no consequences for any of this stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, man, I think the Yankees are in Chicago tonight for the series against the White Sox. Just adds a little bit to it, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be interesting. That'll get interesting real quick. That's tough. I mean, it's hard to just hear one side of the story. It's difficult to hear just one perspective and assume and take it as gospel. But if any of that, even one bit of that is truth, then yeah, there's definitely some underlying problems that need to be addressed. And you can see how some things can get out of hand like this and like they did over the weekend. But that's definitely going to make for an interesting series. I can at least say that.
Well, and just one last thing on that, multiple sources, because you're right. I mean, let's not exaggerate it, overblow it. Of course, that's what we do with talk shows, and I shouldn't do that. But multiple sources corroborated Middleton's account to ESPN, saying a pitcher was seen napping during games as well as skipping fielding practice. But anyway, just to kind of close the book on the White Sox. Mm-hmm. As far as Jose's concerned, Mandy, Major League Baseball hasn't weighed in, I don't think. Are you hearing? I mean, obviously he's going to be suspended. Certainly, we hope not as long as Tim Anderson, nor is he deserving of that. But if you had a guess, or if you're hearing any whispers or anything that you might be able to shed light on what it could look like for Jose.
I'm not, and I wish I was, but these types of situations are usually really buttoned up. They keep this type of stuff very close to the chest, and you don't really hear it until that announcement comes out. And so my guess, it's going to be loftier, heftier than what a normal suspension would be if you just argue with an umpire. He did land a punch, and I know that Cleveland's perspective is always going to be it was self-defense, and it was. He definitely wasn't the one who started it. It was definitely Anderson who was the instigator of the entire series. But we've all seen the punch now. We've seen it in slow motion from so many different people on Twitter. We've seen it in regular speed. We've seen all of it. And I think he's definitely going to still have to pay for that, regardless of whether it's self-defense or not. If I'm trying to guess a number, I would maybe go with 7.
Yeah.
Would I be absolutely shocked if that number is 10? No, but I don't know. And maybe he does appeal. And maybe he does try to explain, like, look, this was self-defense. This wasn't me instigating. I wasn't trying to get into this mess. And maybe that does help him. Who knows? But it's really hard to guess because it's been a while. I mean, you talked about the Odor and Bautista one. I mean, that's been a handful of years now. So it's been a while since we've seen this level of intensity, this level of a brawl. So I'm not sure, and I'm sure we'll find out sooner rather than later, just because Major League Baseball is going to want to try to hand this out ASAP and sort of close the chapter on this.
A few more minutes with Mandy Bell. She is the beat writer for the Cleveland Guardians with MLB.com. She joins us here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. All right, Mandy, actually we can talk some baseball now, like, real baseball. Here's the reality of the situation, I guess. The Guardians are now 4.5 games back of the Minnesota Twins, who rallied yesterday. They've won 4 in a row. Look, there's still a lot of baseball to be played, but I think when the Savali trade went down, Naylor's on the D. I mean, it's just it seems like everything now is come to the point where, okay, yes, do they have a chance? They do, but I think it would take a miracle at this point, and I think now for those fans that want to see the young guys, the Rocchios and whatever, well, with the good comes the bad, and you saw some of that yesterday. I just think this team, they've been struggling all year, and I feel like, okay, let's get a look at these guys, but as far as really winning anything or being a competitive, they've got a tough schedule the rest of this month. How do you see them playing out the rest of the season and as far as all the injuries and whatnot?
I think the goal of the remainder of this season now is to figure out what they're going to do for the future. I think that's the biggest number one thing that they need to sort out. And that was becoming the case before the trade deadline. This is not the case now just because they got rid of Aaron Savali, who had a really great July. But you look at his history, his injury history has been brutal. And you never really had a long enough look at him in between injuries to know if this was something that was sustainable. He got off to that great start in 2021 before all of these injuries took place. So it was just hard to know. He was a wild card at this point. Would he be able to develop into being a great pitcher for you guys long term? Or was that just a really hot month and he could be a problem with injuries and inconsistencies moving forward? So if they're able to get something good out of that, and we'll have to see if Manzardo turns into that, but that could be a big win for them. We just won't know for the immediate future. So even before they were trending into okay, let's get rid of Ahmed Rosario, let's get rid of Aaron Savali and Josh Bell, it seemed like a long shot for this year. And even if they did win the division, which they had a chance just because the Twins really haven't been much better, this wasn't the roster for them to go all the way this year. And it just wasn't. And they've shown the difficulties that they've had. And so when you know that's the case and you're really only chasing after a division title, at some point you have to sort of just be real with yourself. And that's the front office saying, look, this isn't going to be our year. And if we try to make it our year when it's not our year, are we missing out on then having success in 2024 or 2025? And if they would end this season with Ahmed Rosario still at shortstop when you know he's not going to be there next year, and they're starting from scratch going into spring training of figuring out, all right, let's learn as much as we can about all these middle infielders, they're already setting themselves up to be behind in 2024. And so I think that's the biggest thing now of, okay, now that Josh Naylor's on the IL, which is the best bat this team has, maybe it's a little bit easier for everyone to stomach the fact that the reality is they needed to start planning for the future. And without his bat, it makes it a little bit more digestible to say, yeah, this isn't the year, and let's focus on the young guys. And so now they do get to see Arias. They get to see Freeman when he gets back from his shoulder strain, which they didn't seem to think it would take him too long on the IL to come back. Let's see the Rocchios, and maybe by the end of the year, we'll see more young guys and mixing in and just starting to figure out what the future could look like. But now that's the biggest goal is let's make sure we're not starting behind the 8 ball in 2024.
Mandy, one of the things that we have seen, and I know you've been able to see up close, is the great culture. We hear a lot about culture, but the Guardians have had that really since Tito's taken over, and it's a tight-knit clubhouse and all of that stuff. This year has been difficult. Now, obviously, I don't think that it's fractured anybody. We hope it hasn't fractured the bond there. But when you hear that the front office flew to Houston to meet with them, and then we heard that some guys weren't too happy, and you understand they want to compete, they want to have a chance to win. Can you give us an idea of where the team's at right now, and just from the outside looking in, being able to kind of see and gauge a mood or actions and whatnot?
I definitely think there were some frustrations, maybe even just with communication, if nothing else, over the last few weeks. I think it was difficult for the front office to be back in Cleveland when the team is in Houston for the trade deadline and they're making some of these moves like Aaron Savali. I don't think Savali was completely blindsided by it, but I also don't think he was expecting it. So if he himself is in that position, I'm sure his teammates sort of felt the same way of like, okay, it sort of seems like anyone could be on the trading block for us at any point, but I don't know if that's going to be the smartest move. I don't know if that would actually happen. Let's not worry about it. And then when it does, it might be a little shell-shocking to that room. And you're trying to figure it all out. And so, yeah, maybe there's some frustration that the front office wasn't there to explain their goals, to explain why they want to do things that they're doing. And so they did come down the next day and sort of leave their door open for everybody to just ask them questions and have conversations if you needed to have the conversations. But I think the biggest thing of those moves maybe is getting rid of 3 of the veteran presence that were in that clubhouse. You had Ahmed Rosario, who was a lead by example guy and did it really, really well. He did it alongside Jose Ramirez and just so happened to be Jose Ramirez's best friend. So that's tough to deal with just on a personal level for him. Josh Bell wasn't here very long, but he was really a stand-up person in that room and helped bring a little bit more experience to that room. And then Aaron Savali has been in this rotation for a handful of years now and was a leader on the pitching staff side. And so you lose 3 veterans. This team has gotten so much younger. I think it's difficult when you don't have that guy, that veteran, that person who can actually speak up a little bit more. Now, Jose is a lead by example guy, and he always will be, but to have that professional, that veteran with so much experience, I think that makes it a little bit more difficult to keep everyone together during difficult times, because so many of these guys don't know any better. So many of these guys are just trying to survive in this league still, and try to establish themselves. And so I think that became part of why Cole Calhoun was acquired, and trying to have that guy. And it seems like in just a short period of time, he is that guy that can bring a maturity level to this clubhouse that had been missing, of more of just like experience. Let me show you what it's like to be in the league. Let me show you how it's like to be resilient and to bounce back and to come together. And he's already shown that he can speak up in the room. He's not a guy, you wouldn't even guess that he's never met any of these people before. He's so comfortable in there, and he's accountable. And we saw that whenever he struggled to pick two of Rocchio's throws yesterday. And so I think that should help Tito out a little bit of guiding this young room and getting everyone back together. And it definitely seemed like the turmoil over the weekend with the White Sox caused everyone to reunite as well. Not that they were breaking up, but it definitely felt different. The clubhouse felt different after the trade deadline. And I think that it's starting to get back on the track of everyone pulling in the same direction again.
Who's responsible for keeping the press box glued? Like, that bond together. Is it the veteran Hoynesy? Is it Meisel, Castro, maybe yourself? Like, who give us a peek behind the curtain, Mandy, of kind of the dynamics, the culture of the highly esteemed press box over there at Progressive Field.
Man, if we're putting ourselves in Hoynesy's hands, I think we're all in trouble. So no, we're not going with Hoynesy. We think one of my favorite people on the planet, but he will tell you right away he's probably the most scatterbrained in there. So we're not going with Hoynesy. I think it's a group effort. Is that too PC of an answer?
Yeah, but it's kind of what I expected. I was hoping maybe you would. I mean, the jab at Hoynesy was great. I was hoping maybe you would take one at Meisel, but that's okay. I know that that's why
Zach's too indecisive.
Ooh, I like that.
Zach's
okay.
way too indecisive with decisions. I don't think he can be the one, and I'm sure I'll get a text from him at some point about saying this, but I'll deal with that when it comes.
Well, go ahead and cut that clip. Make sure we have that, because I believe she's right on the mark as far as describing Zach Meisel. Mandy, you do a great job. We appreciate the time. Follow her on Twitter at MandyBell02. Continued success. Keep up the good work, and we'll see how this season plays out. Thank you, Mandy.
Great. Thanks so much, Chico.
All right. That is Mandy Bell, MLB.com. Yeah, Hoynesy, and I think Hoynesy would just – I don't know if Hoynesy has it in him to be like, all right, we're going to – like, Hoynesy's just – he's a fun-loving guy, right? Castro, I think Castro is the lead by example. Meisel, indecisive. I love that. I absolutely love that. Maybe Zupi, maybe I don't know. We're gonna look into. I love the indecisive. Zach Meisel is too indecisive to be the leader in the press box.
Can relate.
God love Mandy Bell. She does great work. All right, Bohm, I'll tell you what. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get to fair or foul. Also, before the hour is up, we got to get to some Browns news as they gear up. First real preseason game. I know the Hall of Fame game took place. We were all happy to see it, but really starts this Friday at home against Washington. We'll talk about that before the hour's up. But fair or foul is next. The Chico Bormann Show rolling along on this Monday. All of it right here on the Big Play Sports Network. And welcome back. Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. You can stream us live Monday through Friday, 11 to 1 we do the show. And you can stream us live on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. Also, you can do so on YouTube. Type in the Chico Bormann Show. If you are not subscribed now, you can do so now. And we appreciate it. Good stuff from Mandy Bell. By the way, I'm going to give another plug for my boy, Cody Dowk. Everybody's coming up with T-shirts. I'm serious. I think we were the first ones, and Cody specifically. I had nothing to do with it. But Cody's got 2 shirts available. There wasn't a whole lot of good. You lose 2 out of 3 to the Chicago White Sox. Your season's kind of on the brink. But you did have Hosey become even more of a legend than he already is. Check out at Big Play Store on Twitter. Go to bigplay.com and get your T-shirts. They will be going quickly. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, Chico, and you coined it yourself. The punch heard around the world.
The punch. Actually, I think somebody else did. But
okay.
if you would, that's why I like you, Bohm. You give me way too much credit, and most people know I don't deserve that. But I appreciate that. And plus, by the way, you're. And it's sad because you're going to be going on vacation here later this week, Bohm.
I'll be here just long enough to hear Booney's perspective, which I'm relieved for.
You got another gig going on in Myrtle Beach.
Several gigs, but starting in Myrtle Beach.
Several gigs starting in Myrtle Beach. But to hear you so eloquently talk about the White Sox culture and compare that to the Browns for years and years was, I was kind of like a parent. I almost started to, well up and cry. You were so just dead on with that comment. All right. We want more, Mr. Bombastic. Let's give him more. It's fair or foul time on the Chico Bormann Show. What's up, Bo?
All right, Chico. Well, I want to lead off right there. And this question was inspired courtesy of Ronald chiming in on the YouTube comments. And you, too, can chime in if you want to leave some feedback or your perspective on the matter. But Ronald said, and I think he brings up an interesting aspect to this whole thing that we haven't really discussed up to this point, but Ronald said Jose finally snapped after all the struggles this season. Can't say that I blame him. Now, when we heard Jose talk about this, he specifically mentioned how he felt like Tim Anderson has been respecting the game for a long period of time.
Disrespecting the game, yep.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's interesting to consider the fact also just how frustrating it must be as a Guardians player this season. Obviously, the record. You're dealing 3 veterans, and especially I know a guy like Rosario, and you heard Mandy Bell say it too. One of Jose's best friends in the locker room. So it does feel like maybe there has to be some frustration just from how the season has unfolded. That being said, I want to ask you, Chico. I guess this is kind of to dissect Ronald's point and pick nits a bit. But with that said, fair or foul, if the Guardians were having a successful up-to-expectation season, this fight would have never culminated.
Foul. I see what you're saying, and I will say this. Do I think there's some frustration? Sure. That's human nature. Nobody's saying that they shouldn't be frustrated. Nobody's saying that they can't question, and I think it was good to see. They have a great culture there. They have had for years. This year has been bad, and the front office is messed up. The players have not played up to expectations. You've had injuries. All the ingredients were there for what we've had. In terms of what happened Saturday, here's what makes Jose Ramirez. He is the ultimate professional, and the only reason I say that is when we talk about playing the game the right way, he wouldn't let, even though, your point's a good one, his best friend Ahmed Rosario is gone, and the team's struggling, and, man, he just lost Naylor now, and they traded Savali. Jose he's just not that guy. He's just not that guy that would let that. I think this is something that has been brewing, not only this weekend, but for a while now with Tim Anderson. And I think it was Jose basically saying, I'm not going to take it anymore. And not just sticking up for himself. Clearly when Anderson does this and puts up the dukes and challenges him to a fight, he's going to respond. But I think it was Jose just being Jose, you know what? If you guys think that you can and you in particular, Tim, think that you can kind of take advantage of us, or you can disrespect Brian Rocchio by wiping it or pushing his hand off the bag. It ain't going down. So, I'm probably reading into things and dramatizing some of it, but Jose is such a professional, and I just think that you heard Mandy say it, you've heard everybody say it. It takes a lot to get Jose in that state of mind. So I think that's all it was. It was Tim Anderson absolutely, positively crossing the line, and once he did, there was no turning back.
Yeah, and another thing that I want to bring up about this fight, and I'll pose this as my second fair or foul question, because I thought it was really interesting how Mandy Bell talked about and shed some light on some of the aspects of Tim Anderson's disrespect for the game that I didn't even really consider. Maybe tagging roughly, because we saw that the past couple days with Rocchio and then with Jose, but also like hounding Arias at first base and being a nagger. I thought that was interesting. I had no idea, and like as you've pointed out a couple times on the show,
25 games below 500, and you've been terrible. What are you talking? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So with all that said, just to make, I guess, a cheesy cross-sport comparison, is it fair or foul to call Tim Anderson the Draymond Green of Major League Baseball?
See, I can't, and Mandy was PC about it. Like, she's not going to say, oh, yeah, there's going to be more reports coming out, and I'm sure she'll write about it, and others will write about it, that, oh, yeah, this is now documented. But I think like I said, I don't think Jose Ramirez does this, and others basically come out and say this about Tim Anderson if it's not true. Here's what I will say. Draymond Green, I'm going to go foul, because I think there are others that do the same thing as Tim and are probably more. I mean, if anything, maybe we should give Tim Anderson credit that he's been able to hide it for this long. Like, Draymond Green is pretty much, this is who I am.
Draymond's not hiding anything.
No, absolutely not. He's going to get in your face. He's going to yell. He's going to scream. He's going to do it not only on the floor. He's going to do it on the bench. He's going to do it in the media room. He's going to do it everywhere. Whereas Tim Anderson, and I don't know which is better or worse, because with Draymond, at least you know what you're getting. I feel like Anderson's kind of, I hate to say it, I feel like Anderson got what he deserved. Like, the bull, you know what I mean? Like, all the stories you hear growing up about the bully at school, and he says this and says that, and he's been doing it for a while and trying to take advantage. And then all of a sudden, like, you messed with the wrong dude. And I just think it's so, it's just poetic to me. Pardon that word, because it's probably not, it's far from the right word to use. But I think it's so justified that it was Jose that just happened to be sliding in there. And it was Jose that got up and took exception. And it was Jose that said, all right, you want to go? Let's go. And I'm happy about it. But I won't say he's Draymond Green as far as just how animated he is, but he might be, certainly, as far as running the mouth.
Yeah, and certainly there's like obviously it feels like a lot of stuff brewing in Chicago that is not good, a lot of negative tension. Really quick, fair or foul, Chico, there's no way that White Sox manager makes it out of the season.
That's a good question. That's a great question. I don't, how much of this, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say this, prefacing it by saying I believe what Keenan Middleton is saying, who's now with the New York Yankees and will be in Chicago tonight with the White Sox, facing the White Sox. If any of that is true, then I think you have no choice. Like, I also don't want to say, well, Pedro Grifal's the reason the White Sox are 25 games above or below 500, and last year it was La Russa. I think it's up top, and Middleton said that as well. But ultimately, if that gets out, okay, and that is what people know about, and you're a general manager, and who knows if the general manager should even keep his job, considering how bad it's been. But I'm going to say no, because the allegations that are coming out, if they are right, if they are, somewhat true, I don't see how he keeps his job.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be irresponsible of the organization to retain him, knowing that all of this stuff is actually happening underneath him, under his watch. You know, it's kind of like the inverse of the whole Pat Fitzgerald thing, where you're letting a lot of people run rampant and get away with a lot of stuff, where even if you may not know about the full extent of it, the fact that it's happening underneath you is just unacceptable.
And I real quick, and then I'll move on, and I know you got some more. I do think it was interesting what Middleton said about no Lance Lynn there. I forget who the other one he said wasn't there, but that, you know, when they weren't there in the beginning of spring training because of the WBC, that those are guys that normally would kind of, okay, this is how we do things. You're not sleeping in the pen. You're not missing fielding practice. This is how we do it. It's a culture. There's no doubt. That is the right word to use. Does it mean that Grifol has to be the scapegoat or the fall guy? I don't even want to say scapegoat, but he has to lose his job? Might very well. Might very well.
All right, Chico, so I got another baseball one for you. This after a matchup between the LA Dodgers and San Diego Padres. Did you happen to see, it was circulating on Twitter a little, or X, I should say, a little bit. Did you happen to see that contentious at bat between Tatis and Joe Kelly, bullpen pitcher for the Dodgers?
I love Joe Kelly. No, I did not see it.
Oh man, I really want to ask you about this one. You might have to see it to like actually give a full opinion on it. But so he's having this at bat, right? And he throws two that just basically like buzz Tatis's face, right? It's like almost at his head. One of them even skimmed off of his bat, like right by his head as he's trying to pull away from it, right? And so you see Tatis, he needs to take a couple moments after each one to gather himself. Like even after the second one, he like knocks his helmet off out of frustration, right? And so then he takes on the next pitch, and it's a strike three call. I wanted to ask you if you felt like how Joe Kelly approached this at bat was fair or foul, but maybe you not seeing the whole thing, I'll have to send it to you right now, but maybe you not seeing the whole thing sort of makes it a tough decision.
I'm going to say fair, or okay, I'll go with foul. I don't even need to see it because Joe Kelly is, remember the whole Astros scandal, and he was the guy, like, I mean, he is, we're talking about Draymond Green, talking about instigators. Like, Joe Kelly he's a character. What I find interesting is, does he know deep down? Because Fernando Tatis Jr., who is an incredible talent, has missed a lot of time, whether it be suspensions for PEDs, whether it be injuries, whether it be other things. So Kelly, I wonder if in the back of his mind, probably didn't, but in the back of his mind, he's going, he doesn't have the cojones to charge me or do anything, because if he gets suspended again, I mean, they're going to really, he's got to be there for his team. Padres are fighting. Probably won't. I don't know if they're going to make the play. I probably won't. So does Joe Kelly know that? That would be next level, but I think it's something Joe Kelly is definitely capable of because he is a character.
Yeah, and certainly a very aggressive pitcher.
Yes.
So I know you said I didn't have to send it, but I did send it anyway. If you ever have the time to check it out, because it looked like you could tell that Tatis got very emotional in that moment.
Oh yeah, he is very emotional.
But I want to move on now to talk a little college ball, Chico. Let's talk some ball because the opening coaches poll dropped. Now, obviously, it means nothing, and I would first like to lay out the disclaimer that I am no expert around college football. That being said, Chico, the rankings are as follows. First, Georgia. Second, Wolverines. Third, Alabama. Fourth, Ohio State. 5, LSU. Fair or foul, you agree with those rankings? I think there's a couple of interesting things here.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and I'm not trying to sidestep this one, but I think they're fair. I mean, do I think that's how it's going to end up? No. Do I think it's fair for what's coming up in the season going on? Because, again, it's always based a little bit on, even if it's not fair and it shouldn't be, what happened last year. And, look, all those programs, certainly Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, even now Michigan, they're not going anywhere, right? They're great for a reason. They've been on the mountaintop for a reason. I mean, I think right now, and I know you're going to make a case for Ohio State being number one, and I get it. Here's what I would say. Ohio State right now, if you're a team that's trying to figure out who your quarterback is, then you're probably not going to be as high as you'd like. Now, will it be an issue midway through the season, at the end of the season? Will it be Kyle McCord? Will it be Devin Brown? I have no idea. But I think going in, it's fair because Ohio State's still trying to figure out, A, who their quarterback is, and B, the team that's number 2. And you say, well, Michigan, the team that's beaten them the last couple of seasons. So I'm gonna say it's fair as far as those rankings.
Yeah, Chico, I would say I don't agree with them, but I think they are fair.
Now, which part don't you agree with, Boom? I am very curious to know.
All right, so obviously the gaping one is I think it's fair to put the Wolverines ahead of Ohio State despite how both their seasons ended. Obviously, in the head-to-head, the team up north reigned victorious, but that being said...
Kicked their ass.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't just they kicked their ass in that game. I mean, there's no getting around it.
But the way that their seasons ended was a difference of night and day. Like, the Wolverines just got absolutely dominated in that game against TCU. Meanwhile, Ohio State put one of the most valiant efforts against Georgia that they have encountered all season. So I think it's interesting to note that as well. But like I said, I think that the ranking is fair. The one that I thought was interesting actually was putting LSU at 5. I didn't have very high expectations for LSU this season. And then you had USC at 6 with Caleb Williams, who is widely considered the best quarterback in college football. I mean, I feel like, and like I said, I'm not a college football expert, but I would have, if I were doing my own personal rankings, I would have put USC ahead of LSU.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think that's fair. I think many people are high on that young quarterback, Milton, at LSU. I think that's the reason for it. And, I mean, they're good. You're not getting there but I think people really, if you're 5th in the country preseason, they're expecting Milton to light it up this year. I'm with you, though. I would put USC ahead of them. But, by the way, Pac-8, Pac-4, what? The Pac-12? What? They don't even have – are they a conference still? Oh, you're real serious. What do you – go ahead. You're very,
no, I'm just studying the rest of these rankings because I would –
Oh, do tell 6 through 10. I'm curious.
All right, well, I want to go through 12 because – 13 because I think that 13 is relevant. But so at 7, you've got Penn State. At 8, you've got Florida State, then Clemson, Tennessee, Washington, 12, Texas, and 13, Notre Dame, who Ohio State will be playing early on in the season.
What's your beef with 13?
No, I thought it was worth noting because Ohio State is going to be taking on what is currently the 13th ranked team in the country.
Okay, I thought you had a
providing context, but lots of new Big Ten teams and current Big Ten teams here in these rankings. You're seeing them dominate just as much, if not more, neck and neck with SEC teams.
You really love that whole SEC versus Big Ten. And I mean, I do too. I don't like Feinbaum gets on my nerves, but
yeah.
You really, I think you take the SEC Big Ten stuff to heart more than you do if somebody were to criticize a family member of yours. Be like, well, I can live with that, but don't you dare tell me that the SEC is better than the Big Ten. Don't you dare.
Well,
you're very serious about it, Bohm.
I don't know that I could say that the Big Ten is better than the SEC, but that being said, I do have a bit of the Big Ten pride, and I want to see them overtake the SEC, like, blatantly, clearly, which I don't feel that they have done yet. That is not a title that they can say they've claimed.
Blatantly, clearly. I love it.
All right. Oh, also, I wanted to say, because you were talking about the quarterback battle with Ohio State, I don't know if you saw any of the clips of McCord and Devin Brown over the weekend. I like Devin Brown's throws in practice. From what I saw, take that for what it's worth. I liked him better than what I saw from McCord.
I'm not surprised. I think Devin Brown brings more flash, athleticism, even art. Like, it's just a matter of, is Ryan Day as comfortable? I don't doubt for a second that Devin Brown has more of the toolbox, more in the toolbox than McCord has. But ultimately, game manager and knowing the offense, feeling comfortable with that. But Devin Brown is one talented dude. I mean, it won't be long for him, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think McCord is more than capable of being not just a game manager, but he has some serious arm talent. I mean, this is a guy who came into college football as a 5-star prospect. This was Ryan Day's guy who he passed up J.J. McCarthy for in the recruiting process. So I do think that there is a lot of talent, and I have more expectations out of what McCord can do than just be that game manager. I think he's more than capable.
I'm not saying game manager. I'm saying he knows the offense. Yeah. Don't read into that. Yes, he's a good quarterback, Bohm. Ohio State's not a top 5 program. Isn't recruiting him. You're not a game manager at a school like Ohio. I'm just saying he's more of the, okay, hey, I've got a firm grasp of the offense. Can he make all the plays Devin Brown can? No. Is he just a wooden Indian back there and can't move and can only make short to intermediate throws? No. Jeez, oh man. You can't take any criticism of Ohio State at all.
I have a criticism right now, Chico.
I didn't even criticize. I didn't call him a game manager. I said he's more familiar, he's more comfortable with the offense, and Ryan Day does. Any coach takes that into account. Now, in a month, he might say, you know what, Devin Brown's caught up to you, and I'm going with the playmaker. But I'm not saying that Kyle McCord is just some kid.
He was soaring them a little bit, Chico. He was throwing those balls a little bit high. From what I saw, from what was captured on video, a lot of his passes were too high.
I'm sure you broke that down in slow, like people were breaking down Jose and Tim Anderson.
I watched them all on repeat.
You were breaking down Kyle McCord like frame by frame by frame by frame.
Yeah, there was one deep ball from Devin Brown that was circulating, though, that at first glance looked great, but you could see that receiver definitely had to slow down a little bit, so it was just a tad underthrown. Devin, just put a little more on it next time. That's coaching courtesy of Bohm. But I digress.
No, you digress.
I mean, I could keep going, but
I know you could. Yeah, you're right. You do digress. Let's go.
All right. Well, I want to talk about a report that I saw that the Cavs are looking into and exploring the possibility of a sign and trade with restricted free agent PJ Washington. Now, apparently, Charlotte, they're unwilling to offer him a long-term deal, and he's looking for one. He's only 24 years old, and he's you could say he's a pretty versatile player. He's had good performances against the Cavs in the past that I can recall.
I had not seen this report. Interesting.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I want to ask you, Chico, fair or foul, PJ Washington would move the dial for you with the Cavaliers. Like, do you think that, obviously, you expect them to be a middle of the conference playoff contender? Certainly, there's a few steps that need to be taken, not just like who they have on the roster, but also the fact that they needed that experience under their belts and they did not show up in the playoffs like they needed to. But does a guy like PJ Washington move the dial for you on the Cavs, if he were to come to the Cavs, and make you think maybe this team could be more of a competitor, like legitimately a top 2 seed in the East?
I mean, I don't think P.J. Washington, but I like the addition a lot. I mean, he was one of the, if I remember correctly, his name was being bandied about quite a bit. It wasn't expected that he was supposed to even be at this juncture, but yeah, I mean, it would be a nice addition. I don't, and I know you get like, would you put him in the top 2? You got to see. I got to see these guys mesh again. I know I'm playing the fence, but I mean, move the dial. It has me more optimistic, sure, because he's a talented guy. But I don't know if it's that earth-shattering, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Chico. I want to get to this one. I want to do a little bit of rapid fire with you here on today's edition of Fair or Foul.
Sure, Bo.
So we had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, obviously the game as well, where the Browns played. I came across a list of players eligible for the class of 2024. So I want to run it down with you and just give me a fair or foul if you think they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, at least inducted this season.
I like the first. These are one of my favorite exercises to do. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's start. Julius Peppers. I think that's a Hall of Famer. First ballot, I don't know, but I'm
going to say yeah too. I know injuries hurt him a little bit, and how long did he play?
Let me find that out.
No, don't worry about it because we got rapid fire. We're almost out of time. Yeah, I was going to say yes, but I was just teetering on did he miss. But talent-wise, he was unbelievable. 2-sport athlete at North Carolina.
Played 17 seasons, by the way.
Did he play 17?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I'm an idiot. Yes. Hall of Fame, easy. I thought he was, but I didn't know he played that long.
Okay, how about former Kent State basketball player Antonio Gates?
See, this is another tough one because when we talk about the game changing, right? Back when when Tony Gonzalez was doing his thing, and I'm not saying it started with Tony Gonzalez, but there weren't many guys like him. Now you look at the tight end position. Hell, the Browns have their own, and I'm not saying he is Tony Gonzalez, but they have their own version where that tight end position, seemingly everybody has the uber athletic tight end that can stretch the field, that can, that can make plays for you, and then hopefully can block. But if not, well, you've got a blocking tight end on your roster. I'm going to say yes, because I think Antonio Gates, he was like...
He was part of arguably one of the most dominant regular season offenses in football.
Well, and he was, I think when you talk about the best of the position, he was there. I mean, he was right there. Now, I think he played with Gonzalez. Not with, but I mean, it was
in that same
around
era.
The same time.
They were always neck and neck to me.
Yeah, it was Gonzalez, it was Gates. So yeah, I'm gonna say Gates, yes.
I would agree with you, Chico. Now, here's an interesting one. Andrew Luck, who obviously phenomenal player, didn't have quite the sample size.
No.
Yeah, I think this one is going to get some contention. I feel like people are going to push back on it and make a case for him. But that being said, let's move on because
what? No. This is too good. I don't, Andrew. I don't. We'll end with this one because I got to touch on some Brown stuff anyway.
All right.
You can save all your good stuff for tomorrow. Andrew Luck, I mean, it's not. I know it's just. Well, he didn't play long. He didn't play long, but he walked away from the game. Like, I mean, and again, I know it was the neck injury. I know, good for him for doing that. But, okay, there are certain I don't want to say consequences. There are certain things that happen or don't happen when you make that decision. And one of them is you're not deserving of the Hall of Fame. Talent-wise, hell yes. But he basically was like, you know what? It's not worth it for me to keep playing. And I don't fault him for that. Good for him. He's a smart guy. Wanted to be around for his family, but you don't get rewarded with the Hall of Fame. That doesn't. You don't get your cake and eat it too, Boom. And that is fair or foul. All right, quickly, I wanted to touch a little bit on the Browns here. They are back on the practice field, I believe. I don't know if it's going to be outside. Right now, it's ominous looking, Boom. You would like that ominous. We got quite a bit of rain earlier. They're supposed to be in the practice field at 2 o'clock. They've got Washington coming up this Friday at home. I think that's really where we say, okay, the preseason starts. Yeah, you had the Hall of Fame game, but I think that was all, and the Browns really planned as such. They're really, and Stefanski in particular, but Andrew Berry, all of them are very detail-oriented. I think that Hall of Fame game was always just kind of, okay, an extension of kind of, mini camp and camp, but now you start to, okay, we're going to see probably Deshaun Watson on Friday for a few series. Probably won't see Chubb, probably won't see Garrett, Bitonio, Amari Cooper if he's healthy, but they're not going to rush him back. But now is when it starts to kick into high gear. Now Alex Wright did not practice yesterday. Isaiah Thomas did not practice yesterday. These are key guys on that defensive line. So if they're going to sign old Shelby, hopefully it's coming soon. Yes, Paul.
Chico, I know we're kind of looking forward here to the next matchup, but I would be remiss not to ask you what you thought of Joe's speech. Because I don't know about you, but I thought there were times that I certainly found it to be a little bit tear-jerking.
That doesn't surprise me. You know what? I didn't think necessarily. I thought the only tearjerker moment was right in the beginning when he mentioned his dad,
you see his dad start to choke up.
Yeah, and he just, that's awesome, right? He's like, I saw you, go to work every day. It's just that was really cool. I thought it was more fun, and I also because that's Joe Thomas. I thought he represented himself in Cleveland exactly how he has from day one. He said, "You can count on me." And I remember him saying that in an interview with him earlier, when he said at Wisconsin that was our kind of motto: "You can count on me." Well, and then he said to the fans, for those that didn't see it, you've always been able to count on me, and I've always been able to count on you. I thought it was very well done. His wife, his kids. Did you see the photos? I texted him actually of the photos of his son riding in the car. Steeler fans were out there, and he was giving him the thumbs down.
Love it.
And he said, I'm telling you, he is so passionate about his love for the Browns. That's just, of course, because he's Joe's kid. It's just awesome.
And
great story.
I also found it to be very profound what he had to say about his city, about the city of Cleveland and about the Browns organization. and he told a lot of great stories, and I really appreciated what he had to say about talking about like specific teammates. It was cool to see Alex Mack in attendance. I wonder if there were any other former teammates there too. Also, I think it was nice to hear what he said about his wife. You know, maybe that made me choked up for personal reasons that I'll digress on. But I thought overall it was a very good speech.
Boom, and it's there's no issue with that. I kid you, but I love it. Like, you're very sensitive. If I, make a comment about, Kyle McCord might not be as athletically gifted as Devin Bryant. Chico, I wish you wouldn't say that about Kyle McCord. I think he's uber athletic, and I think he could win the Heisman Trophy, not only this year, but also next year.
How could you be so obtuse?
I love you, Boom. All right, we are out of time. Oh, you kill me. I'm going to miss you when you're gone, dude. I mean, glad we'll get, some interns in here and it'll be fun, but it's Boom, you're kind of you're a staple.
It's going to be weird not having to wake up bright and early and like just show up on a studio and be ready to appear on camera.
That is very, very early for you, I know, and you're being facetious because you go to bed about when the sun's coming up, but that's okay. You're rocking your guitar. All right, thanks to Mandy Bell for joining us earlier. Don't forget the Reflux show tonight at 9:00. They're going to be they're going to be all over. I think McNeil put out a thing on Tim Anderson and about the whole comments from Middleton about the napping thing. So basically, don't miss the Reflux show tonight. And, of course, him and Gab and Nick and Dapper Dave McAllister. He'll be here as well.
Dave is on the premises today.
He is on the premises. Does he have an X-Acto knife with him or anything to cut that little? It's coming. It's coming. God love Dave. God love all of you. For Michael Bohm, I'm Mike Chico Bormann, and all of us here at Big Play. Make it a great Monday, everybody. See ya.